Technology seems to be on a trajectory of getting better, smaller, and cheaper. And that journey seems to have no end. And one of the areas where technology is continuing to innovate and improve is drone technology. My guest today is Preston Cave, and we're going to talk to him about how he's been using drone technology and some of the ways that it has made his agricultural efforts more effective in two particular ways. First of all, in the realm of cost and repairs.
There's so many more benefits than there are cons with these things because we're not running over the crop. They're not expensive. They're easy to fix. I have yet to bust a hydraulic line on my drone or have a flat tire.
Secondly, in safety, in the challenging mountains of North Carolina.
First of all, we haven't rolled any tractors off the side of these hills. One guy that I sprayed for, I don't know why he done it a second time, but he rolled his 4000 Ford off that same mountain twice and lived to tell about it, and then finally called me.
We're also going to talk to Preston about how he and a team were involved in the relief efforts after Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina.
And then if you had told me that I would have been a part of a team that delivered 3.5 tons of food to people that were in the mountains stranded because of a hurricane in the mountains of North Carolina, I don't know, man. It's been a blessing for sure. There was an older couple that their bridge had washed out, and I actually used my drone that time to fly supplies from one side of the bridge over top of some trees and set it down in his yard. Of a lady and an infant and 3 other kids had been out of food for 3 days, and she had already, she was breastfeeding the baby, so she didn't have nothing to eat, so she couldn't even feed her baby. And they flew 700 pounds of stuff to her from 2,000 feet away in less than 45 minutes. Just people coming together from all parts of the country. I mean, because if it wasn't for people helping people, I don't know what would take place up there.
All that and more on this episode of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Ranch Right and the Wineglass Ranch.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. I'm very excited to be joined today by Preston Cave. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, as you can tell, this episode was recorded a while ago, actually back in December, and just had some other scheduling things that needed to have a particular spot, and so have not been able to release this episode till now. So you're going to hear some discussion of the timeline regarding this relief effort and some of those things that are maybe resolved by now or whatever. So just know that. But this is a great conversation that I had with Preston. Really appreciate him taking the time to share some of what he's been learning in his journey with drones and their uses, and some of the ways he sees them shaping the future of agriculture in America. And then also, obviously, just the incredible opportunity that they had for relief efforts there in western North Carolina with regard to the relief from Hurricane Helene. So I'll share that with you right after a word from our sponsor today, Ranch Right. Does a year's worth of tax prep stand between you and being able to send things to your accountant? Are you tired of email after email asking for documents that you don't know how to find? Are you wondering exactly how much you will owe the IRS this year and have no clue how to even start to figure that out? We've been there, but you don't have to. Hire Ranch Right and know where your business stands. Taxes are a part of life, but Ranch Right helps you with data entry, bookkeeping, reports that you can make sense of, and a realistic outlook of what your business needs this tax season. Visit ranchrightllc.com today and cross tax prep off your list. Preston, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, been aware of you for quite a while and saw just some of the stuff that you've been doing for drone technology and have not covered drone technology on the podcast at all, really. And so uh, just kind of wanted to take a high level bird's eye view, maybe pun intended, look at drone technology
Yeah,
and how you've been able to use it in an agricultural context. So
yeah.
just tell me a little bit about some of the ways that you've been using drone technology.
Yeah, I guess first how we got started. I'm not a drone guy whatsoever. A funny story. I was grazing some summer annuals and had a buddy with a drone and wanted him to come up here and spread some winter annuals in my summer annuals, and then I would trample it down. And I told my dad, let's get some acres. Let's get some acres together. He's a row crop farmer, and to make it worth his while. And Dad said, let's just go buy one. So I was like, okay. And that's how it got started. 7 months later, finally legal, and spraying everything from rice on the coast of North Carolina to steep mountain terrain, 7 hours the other direction in North Carolina in the mountains. So it's been covering a lot of ground and a lot of acres.
Is it something that there's a lot of different applications, right? I mean, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
things that you can do with the drones, from applying liquids and to flying on seed, which sounds like kind of your focus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, within seconds, I can take the spray tank off. It just, if you can think of the drone, and for guys that hasn't even heard of this drone is 12 foot wide from wingtip to wingtip. So it's very large. So the tank is sitting down onto scales, like in the center of the drone, and you can unplug the power cord and unscrew the the lines going to the spray nozzles and put in a spreader in there in a matter of seconds. So, from spraying herbicides, pesticides, insecticides to fungicides, and then switching all the way around to spreading fertilizer, seeds, even ashes. I mean, I've gotten a phone call about spreading human ashes. So I mean, it's crazy. It blows my mind every day of what we can do with it. And North Carolina's got a lot of diversity in crops, so most of the drone applicators are out west spraying fungicide on corn and beans. And here in North Carolina, I've been able to spray. I start off in the spring spraying pastures, and then go from there to if it gets wet. That's one thing about the drones. If it gets wet and damp, I'm not causing compaction. I can fly right after a hurricane. Doesn't matter. And then you get your fungicide season from the East Coast to the western part of the state, so I can chase that and then start back in. My main focus this fall, and it's really a big need, is pastures in the western part of the state, spraying for multifloral rose. Which is very invasive species that takes over pastures, and been a good time in the market at high cattle prices for them to be willing to pay somebody to come in and take care of that.
Yeah, the drone technology is advancing quickly. I'm guessing because I think 6 or 8 years ago, probably the first time I saw an agricultural drone, and I would guess it was maybe 4 or 5 feet wingtip to wingtip.
Yeah,
And at the same time, I mean, I walked in. My brother was renting this place, and I was working for my brother. My brother was renting this place, which was just a loft in a shop, and had to walk through the shop to get to the loft. And I walked in, and I saw that thing sitting there, and it was just like instantaneously. I was like, "Oh, here's the future." The self-driving truck pulls up to the edge of the field, and the drones fly off, do their thing, land, reload, and keep just making those passes.
yep,
And then they all set themselves back down on that self-driving truck and they drive to the next one,
yep.
and I don't know if we're 2 months from that or 20 years from that, but it just seems like that is a totally feasible situation,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
don't. I think we're closer to. It's not going to be 2 months. We're definitely closer to 2 months than we are 20 years. I mean, these are. I mean, I wouldn't even have to touch the sticks of mine. I mean, it creates its path and rolls on. So what I do, if I roll up in the field, I fly around it. And then I fly around it while I'm spraying manual plus on the DJI, and it can create a field from that. And then I just let it go. So it just picks out straight lines and rolls.
Yeah. And talk to me about kind of the efficiency of this tool. What is it capable of? How many acres can it do in a day? Some of those things.
Yeah, so that's a question we always get. People think of drones, they think of small stuff, and it depends on the ground that we're covering. If we're in open terrain, flat fields like in the eastern part of the state, I sprayed 270 acres in one day, and wasn't really pushing. I mean, we was in 3 fields. One field was only 40 acres. The other field was 100 acres, and it had 6 center pivots in it that I had to fly around, and whatever's left is the other field. And it wasn't square, but you're talking, you could easily do 300, maybe 400 acres in big square country. But I'm also doing a lot of stuff in the mountains where there's a 700-foot elevation difference between the bottom and the top, and it lays 8 different ways, and it's only a 20-acre pasture. Which I'm sure you're familiar with that kind of stuff, but that's where you're talking. A good day may be 50 to 80 acres, but right now the only way they can spray that is with backpacks and labor, and labor's not very easy to find and expensive. So it just depends, and it also depends how many gallons per acre we're doing. A lot of the work we're doing 2 gallons an acre, majority of the work. So if we're doing something 10 gallons an acre, then that's going to, more fill ups, can't make it as far on a tank. So,
yeah. What is the capacity? What kind of load can these things carry?
I've got a 10-gallon drone, which is a T40. And then I've also got a T25, that's 5-gallon and 25 liters and 40 liters. And I really love my T25 for the steep stuff. It's a newer drone. It's got a better terrain following. The T40 does not follow terrain very well. And but I mean, there's a drone out right now, the T100. So it's 100 liter. It's in China. It hasn't quite made it to US yet. And there's the other competitors are coming out with bigger drones. I'm a DJI guy for right now. The other competitors are coming out with some better and bigger drones, so hopefully that'll push DJI to get that T100 here in America. So we'll see.
Is it something that's fairly portable, like collapsible? You can fold it up and haul it in a smaller form factor than 12 feet wingtip to wingtip?
Yeah. So it folds up. That one 20-acre pasture with a 700-foot elevation difference, we had to haul it up there in the back of a UTV. I mean, it can literally fold up. It's 36 inches tall, 48 inches long, and like 30 inches wide, folded up, something like that. So it compacts. The way I got it now, I've got it on top of my truck. I got a rack built on top of my truck, so we just lock it down, and then whenever we get somewhere, we'll fold it out on the front part of the truck, and I'll land up there and refill. We're on the ground. I guess we can talk about batteries too. So I got 3 batteries for my drone, and so we're constantly charging these batteries. So while we're flying, we've got one in the drone, one charging, and one cooling. And these batteries will charge in about 9 minutes.
Wow! And you cool them before you charge them, is that right?
Well, they're in a cooling box.
I see.
Yeah. So in the summertime, in the midst of fungicide season, it's a race to try to get them cooled down. These batteries will be running 120, 130 degrees whenever you're running hard. So a lot of people got like air conditioned boxes and stuff like that. For now, I'm in pretty good shape, but you want to keep them in the shade. Yeah.
Sure. Yep. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about some of the aerial seeding applications and kind of the effectiveness of that.
Yeah, that's what really got me excited about this to begin with. I feel like with my grass-fed beef business, I hope that I can get some row crop guys involved. and spreading some, some clovers and some radishes and ryegrass and stuff like that over top of corn in July or August, and then be able to graze cattle, in that as soon as the combine leaves. I feel like that's a no-brainer situation for guys with row crops and cows, and it's gonna take some guys with some open minds to allow me to bring my cows in there. But I think that's the future. That's the only way that people are going to be able to make money, is being able to utilize these cover crops. And we're not far from people really making money off carbon credits either. And if we can get a living cover crop in that corn that's dying down, we're talking about some advantages there as well. Also doing frost seed and clover, and even doing some alfalfa stuff. Alfalfa is, we can spread alfalfa right on top of the ground and then run a coil packer or a rake or something just to incorporate into the soil. Lot of frost seed and clover to do, even on Christmas trees. Up here in the mountains, we're doing a lot of that as well. So, or hope to this winter.
Yeah, and what is that about nitrogen, or what's the advantage there?
Yeah, so with Christmas trees, they actually spray a light dose of glyphosate to knock back the grass to keep the grass or the trees having to compete with grass. So they want a ground cover in there, something short like clover, and also produce nitrogen for them as well.
What is most exciting to you? I mean, you said the grass or the seeding, cover crops, and some of those things. What are some of the other things that excite you about this?
The cover crops for sure, and then just the way that we can utilize different things. I'm it's one of those deals. There's other drones out there that we can go out and we can spot spray stuff too. So a lot of times, I mean, farmers get out there and they're on the edge of spraying something or not, something like glyphosate or some kind of weed killer on their crop. But if we can go out there and spot spray and not have to spray the entire field, when it's saving money for the farmer, and we're not applying as many chemicals on the ground either. So I feel like that's going to be the future. It's kind of hard to price that stuff. For me to go out there and set up and cover a 20 or 60 acre field and only spray 5 acres of it. So we're going to have to do some working on that. But the future of farming is bright in many ways. And this is also something that, young guys like me or even younger can come home to the farm and do this as a side job and be able to stay home and work on the farm and also make money as well. So I think between the seeding, the spot spraying, and the steep pasture stuff that I'm doing and allowing young people to come back and make some really good money is exciting about the drone industry.
What's the key to being successful with, sorry, I was waving at my daughter. I'll edit that. I'm in the back room and she looked at me through the glass door. I'll edit that out. But anyways, what's the key to success, do you think, as far as seeding into, either crops that are going dormant or growing crops and being successful with some of those things?
We've had a rough time the past 2 falls, it being really dry in the fall. So I think we got to get those out early enough to catch some late summer moisture. We just haven't had a good fall to really get some growing done. But we done some testing last year, even on some soybeans late in November. Whenever we threw the seed out, we still had a cover crop that was of triticale that was 22 inches tall the first week in April. So, I mean, it's going to grow out there on the ground better than it will in a bag. So we just got to get it spread. Also, we need a pretty clean slate to spread on. If we've got a lot of weeds in there late July, August, then we try to get this cover crop in there, and then that cover crop's fighting those weeds all winter long. So if we can get a good spray program early to get a good clean slate to spray on, I think it's going to be help us out in the long run to get what we want to grow in there.
Sure. What's the future of this technology? Like, do you see it replacing wheeled machines or is it ever going to, or is it just going to be something that is kind of complementary to that, or how do you see those things?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a drone guy, and it's crazy how much that's changed in the past year since I've been in it. I feel like there's a place for them. They're cheap. A ground rig right now is going to cost you a new one 300 to half $1,000,000. I mean, whenever you can go and buy a drone that I've got for the package I bought was $38,000 that can do everything a spray can do. The only thing that's going to hold back drones is a lot of people are spraying, a lot of gallons per acre at burn down, before they plant with along with nitrogen. So that's going to be a holdback. But every other application a drone can do other than that one heavy burn down. So if you can just change the mindset of farmers to not be wanting to apply so much nitrogen up front, we can spoon feed this crop the whole entire time as it's needed. We can do tissue samples throughout the year of the crop and not have to over apply so much before the spring or before we're planting stuff. So the future, I believe that they can replace it, but I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. Just the mindset of the older farmers out there now. There's so many more benefits than there are cons with these things because we're not running over the crop. They're not expensive. They're easy to fix. I have yet to bust a hydraulic line on my drone or have a flat tire. Yeah, there's problems, but we're not running over the ground. We're not rutting up our ground. We're not running over a crop. I mean, the list goes on and on of what we can do, and it's a pretty cheap setup. I mean, between most of your farmers are going to have all the equipment to as far as filling it and that sort of thing. You just need a big generator and go buy a drone.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Wineglass Ranch. 1,400 head of Wineglass Ranch Easy Keepers are coming up for sale at Oglala Livestock Auction Market on Wednesday, March 26th. Wineglass's proven grazing genetics mean these cows will work for you, not the other way around. This sale will be a rare opportunity and a complete age dispersion of coming 5-year-olds to 9-year-olds. 1,000 of these will calve for 25 days starting mid-April and 400 calve for 25 days starting in early May. If you want more information on getting your hands on the Wineglass Easy Keepers at Oglala Livestock Auction Market Wednesday, March 26th, and across the Fruited Plain online, you can go to wineglassranchinc.com. Earlier, you mentioned the steep ground that you were getting some good results on and just even able to do at all where it wasn't a backpack and lots of manual labor, and so talk to me a little bit more about what exactly you've been doing in some of those scenarios and kind of the results.
Yes. So results have been great. We first of all we haven't rolled any tractors off the side of these hills. One guy that I sprayed for, I don't know why he done it a second time, but he rolled his 4,000 Ford off that same mountain twice and lived to tell about it, and then finally called me. So the safety part of it's huge. I mean, really. And then the way the drone works with the air and the way it's more concentrated drop because we're still using. I'm sure everybody be familiar with Duracor. That's a chemical that we spray a lot of. So we're still using 12 to 20 ounces of Duracor instead of it being in 20 gallons in your ground rig to the acre. We're putting it 2 gallons. So it's a concentrated drop that we can blow down into a canopy with the drone and be able to do a really good job of killing these invasive species where tractors can't even get. And we've got these maps done, put in our drone so we can go back in the wintertime and spread fertilizer or frost seed clover, or even, we can mix in foliars while we're spraying as well. So we can spray foliar fertilizer while we're burning down these weeds too.
And then the seeding too, right? I mean, some of these areas are going to be areas that for better. I would say for better or for worse, but I think we both agree for better.
Yeah.
Are areas that haven't been farmed, right? But
Yeah.
they are also places where you could go in and do some seeding
Yeah.
of whatever, perennials, cover crops, and get some results there too, right?
Yeah. One cool thing I done a couple weeks ago was in a silvopasture situation. A guy come in and cleared all the junk trees out and left a bunch of the hardwoods, and I was flying about 20 feet over the canopy of these trees, which was 130 feet in the air, spreading wheat, ryegrass, and fescue. One thing, he would have had to walked it out there. It was so rough he couldn't even put his four-wheeler in there, but we were able to fly over top of these treetops and get that in. And it was freshly cut, cleared land, so the soil's there. We're just throwing seed on top of it, and he should be able to graze that this spring.
Yeah, and I think we probably both agree. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to no-kill farming yet, where we're still relying on some pesticides to get cover crops to go in a lot of cases. And so we're not there yet. And so this is an opportunity, I think, to use less of some of those pesticides to make these things work. First of all, would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's definitely a way to get that mindset started. If we can start using these cover crops, we're wanting these cover crops in there at a certain time. If we can get this big enough that the cover crops that we want, for one, we can graze it. For two, we don't have to rely on such a harsh burn down in the spring. We could get to where we're just rolling this cover crop down if it's a species that we want and we know that can terminate with rolling or crimping. And then you got a fresh mat there of cover crop that's going to be breaking down throughout the year and releasing nitrogen to our corn crop or bean crop or whatever. So, no, I'm definitely a fan of regenerative agriculture. Just happens to be that with my line of business, I got to spray a little bit more stuff than I want to, but that's just, if it's going to get sprayed, why not do it correctly and do a precise job at it instead of, I guess we probably ain't got too many airplane guys on here listening, so maybe I won't get too much hate mail, but at least we're not, spreading stuff a half a mile away from where it needs to, or drifting. We have some drift with the drone. We are 10 to 12 feet off the ground, but if it's blowing that much, then we just stop. So.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and then the other half of that, kind of, you mentioned there, is the precision side of it too. And I don't know if this technology exists yet in the drone world, but I know of technologies that will recognize a plant and spray directly at it.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I think in those contexts, it's more of there's not really any other plants growing and they're trying to make sure nothing does grow. This would be in railroad situations where they want nothing there to catch a spark off of the railroad.
Right.
So, but does that technology exist, or are we to that point yet where we can recognize plants and spray directly at them?
Yeah. So what we could do, well, our drones spray in a 25 to 30 foot swath. So that kind of limits us a little bit, right? But we can go over with a mapping drone, and a lot of people use these drones just to be able to get their maps down to their spray controller to be able to paint the outline. I don't have one of those yet, but so we can take this mapping drone and goes out, flies over top of the field at 100, 300, 400 feet high off the ground. It's taking pictures every second, and it's actually a multispectral drone lens. So when it takes one picture, it takes five. So then you take all those pictures, put them into a computer program to where you can place all those images in one piece, and you can mess or play. And I haven't done much of this. I've just seen people do it. You can play with the images, and you can actually see where they pick up on weeds in the field. So with those weeds that you see in the field, you can make a spray pattern to where you're not really spot spraying because you're spraying 30 feet wide, but obviously you're not spraying 120 feet wide, and you can just, run it for 10 feet, cut it off, that sort of thing. So you could spot spray, and cut back on, instead of spraying a whole field that's, only got one corner of the field that needs sprayed, just go fly out there and spray it and come back. Or I've done a lot of stuff with just the camera on my drone. I can see pretty well with it, so I can just fly around and spot spray weeds in a pasture, that sort of thing.
And I think that the technology, as you and I both probably agree, it just continues to get better, bigger, faster, better, cheaper,
For
all
sure.
those things. And so I think, it won't take long and we'll be there too, where we can just kind of fly over, recognize plants and target individual plants and spray, at them too. And again, another reduction. And then I think the market has to figure out how to pay the guy that's doing that for that, to make it worth his time
Yeah,
to drive out
yeah,
there and spray, spray. But, I think it is definitely worth it. The accuracy and the efficiency and the not overuse and all those things are definitely worth doing. I would like to transition a little bit and talk about some of other uses, some of the other things that drones are being used for. And I would suppose that like just flying out to check tanks and cattle and salt mineral and those kinds of things, like the drones you're using are going to be overkill for that. Too big for that. A smaller drone's going to do that more efficiently. Probably would be one of my guesses, right?
yeah. So that little drone, the T-25, was 11 grand just for the drone. The batteries are $2,500 a piece. You for checking tanks and stuff like that. I mean, you're talking.
You can buy one drone for the price of a battery, right?
Yeah.
Or
So
less.
yeah, it depends on how far you're going. If you're
Right.
going really far, a mile out, then you'll need to spend probably 25 to 5 grand. But if you're going to be close and just don't you want to play inside your house or look out the window and watch it fly away, then you're talking $500 you could buy a decent drone to check tanks with.
Right. Right. But then, obviously, or maybe not obviously, to people listening, you've had a pretty unique experience here recently with kind of relief efforts related to the hurricane there in North Carolina. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, that was a blessing. I mean, really, it was. If you would have told me 2 years ago that I'd be on this podcast talking about flying drones, I would have said you was crazy. And then if you had told me that I would have been a part of a team that delivered 3.5 tons of food to people that were in the mountains stranded because of a hurricane in the mountains of North Carolina, I don't know, man. It's been a blessing for sure. People have no idea how bad it is in the western part of the state. Um, the hurricane hit on Friday, September 27th, 28th, something like that. I can't remember, but into September. And I was spraying a pasture on Saturday, and it was a pretty easy pasture to spray. And I was just scrolling through Facebook on my phone while the drone was spraying, and everybody was calling for helicopters, needing helicopters to get up here to deliver supplies, people trapped in places. And my buddy Russell Hedrick, I'm sure you probably heard of him.
Yep.
He's actually doesn't live but like an hour and a half from me. He's an hour closer to Asheville, the western part of the state. And I got in touch with him, and he had been on the phone hard, and he used to be in some kind of rescue. I think he was a firefighter or something. So he had some ways in, and he called a lot of people, and we ended up, before we got up there Monday morning, we had raised like $12,000 on Venmo. I had cut down some shopping carts to use my T-40 to fly stuff into people. We get there Monday, and it's a madhouse. They didn't know how to use us. Sunday, I wasn't there yet, but Russell was able to use those mapping drones that I was talking about. They're basically the same thing. Some of them's got thermals on them instead of like a mapping, the multispectral I was talking about. He was able to use thermal drones to locate people on a mountainside that hadn't gotten in touch with. He was able to use those to detect where people were in their houses or not, so that the next day they wasn't running around over the whole mountain. So he put pins down on where everybody was at, and they was able to go and rescue people off that mountain with UTVs. That next day, my first mission was uh, we were going to go up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. There was a washout on the road close to the Blue Ridge Parkway, and we was going to be flying supplies from that washout up to the Parkway to a community in Marion. And they ended up we was able to drive. We had a cattle trailer loaded down with supplies that we had gotten from that money that we raised, and was able to just throw it in full drive. And my cousin had a little single cab Dodge 3500. He let it eat up that mountain, and we got through the ditch, and we got up to the top of the mountain, and handed out a whole 20-foot gooseneck load of supplies and water and gas. And then we went to Old Fort that evening, and those people were already taken care of. They had already got them out with UTVs. They'd crossed the river and got people out. But on the way back to Marion, there was an older couple that their bridge had washed out, and I actually used my drone that time to fly supplies from one side of the bridge over top of some trees and set it down in his yard. And there was a lot of people blowing our phones up the whole time, giving us crazy addresses to go to, but we had to work directly with the local EOCs. We didn't want any to be flying in airspaces. It was like a war zone, helicopters everywhere, so we had to be safe about it. And we were working with the local EOCs in every county we worked in to deliver supplies safely.
Yeah, and you said the T30 is 40 liters, or the T40 is 40 liters. Is that right? So 3.78 gallons or liters per gallon. That's about 10 gallons, right? The T40 carries about 10 gallons. So we're talking 8 pounds per gallon. Your 80-pound capacity, kind of?
Yeah. And we probably stretched our limits on it a little bit, but because of the center of the gravity where that water's at, it's right there at the drone.
Sure.
And we're talking about 100 pounds hanging 40 feet from it, which we didn't have any problems. But the crew that I was with, they had fly carts that Russell drummed up the guys from Best Way to come up and help us. And these fly carts are some bad machines. I mean, they are awesome. They're basically spray drones, but where the tank sits inside the frame rails, it's got a place for 2 batteries. And then below that, it's got a winch or a box you can put stuff in. So this winch is a 40-foot winch. And I don't know when the footage is going to come out, but at some point we were spotting with another, like a mapping drone, and we got some pretty crazy videos of those fly carts flying. We put all the stuff in black garbage bags, like the heavy duty garbage bags. So we put that stuff in there and was able to fly 40-pound bags and 80-pound bags with those fly carts, which are meant to do that. My ag drone's not really meant for it. So we were able to use these fly carts for the first time, working like directly with DJI, calling them up at like 4:00 in the morning, our time, because they'd never been used before, never been unboxed. So we got it figured out, and our T40s have a relay system on it to where you can hook a relay up to it to transmit signal better. And this mountain terrain, apparently the fly carts should not be capable of hooking up to a relay, but we got to hook up to a relay one time, and we really needed a relay more. We would start to lose signal. Jake Harris with Best Way, he was flying the fly carts most of the time, and he was flying down, dipping the bags down into people's yards, and would lose signal, and he would just like slam the drone down, because whenever it lose signal, it automatically come up and return home. And he would finally catch signal like 30 seconds later, and he'd been flying back home with no bag on it. So he knew that it had released the bag in the guy's yard. So it was wild. I mean, it really was what we were doing. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really cool to hear. So Best Way, is that like a company in the neighborhood that people are familiar with?
Best Way and AgriSpray are the two of the bigger dealers, ag drone dealers in America. So they had these ag drones or fly carts there sitting. So, and Russell had bought his drone through Best Way. So
Sure.
that Best Way crowd had guy from Sam from Wisconsin, Jake from Alabama, and Jeff from Florida was all with us.
And what was the use case that those fly carts were developed for?
Like hauling parts, like solar panel parts up in China, like that sort of thing. They were, the reason they aren't compatible for relays is they were meant to be able to connect two controllers to the drone. So one person be on one side of the mountain and another person be on the other side of the mountain. We couldn't get on the other side of the mountain. If we could get on the other side of the mountain, we wouldn't be flying stuff to them. So they were mainly used for, I guess hauling parts and that sort of thing. Maybe rescue, but all the videos that you see of them in China, they were released earlier this year, and it was all for like hauling parts or hauling generators to people.
What drew the guys from Wisconsin and Alabama into North Carolina to help? I mean, how did they hear about it? How did they even think, oh, this is a job for a drone?
Yeah, through Russell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Russell, like I said, Russell had bought from Best Way, and I mean, us ag guys are very skilled pilots because of the terrain that we have to fly and stuff that we have to fly around. So, I mean, it was kind of best case scenario. This fly cart is the same setup, same controller, same motors as an ag drone. So, I mean, all of us were used to flying them. So, this rugged terrain was perfect for pilots like Jake and Sam and myself to be able to fly stuff in. So they just wanted to come in and help.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite stories from that time?
I wasn't a part of this one. I'd already left, but Saturday, the hurricane was Friday. I was there from Monday to Friday. And then Saturday they got a phone call of a lady and infant and 3 other kids had been out of food for 3 days, and she had already, she was breastfeeding the baby, so she didn't have nothing to eat, so she couldn't even feed her baby. And they flew 700 pounds of stuff to her from 2,000 feet away in less than 45 minutes.
Wow.
Baby formula, baby diapers, I mean, everything. So, I mean, it's just people coming together from all parts of the country. I mean, even world. Like we said, we were on the phone with people from everywhere. Sean, I need to remember his name, but some YouTuber, Sean Hedrick maybe. I don't know. He works for that or works with that Beast guy that does all the crazy YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
But we met him Monday, and he showed up passing out Starlinks like candy. We had no service. So we was able to use these Starlinks to communicate back with people whenever we needed stuff. My wife was at home handling all the phone calls and messages and everything. So if we got to a community that needed something, I would post on Facebook, or she would already have the supplies and she would gather it up and send it up the mountain, and we'd have water or baby diapers or whatever. It's just how the community pulled together. Because if it wasn't for people helping people, I don't know what would take place up there. Not going to get too far into political of this thing, but there's a lot of resources that we're not using correctly in a lot of different ways. Like I said, if it wasn't for people helping people, I mean, there's still people up there sleeping in tents right now because they have nowhere to go. Their homes are washed away. And for people that don't realize how this hurricane worked, it dropped 32 inches of rain in some parts of these mountains in like 12 to 16 hours. And the communities were built on side of creeks, and that's the only way the roads could go because the mountains are so steep that you can make a road up the mountain, but there's not many of them. So all the communities were built along these creeks and rivers, and you got 5 to 6,000, 7,000 feet of mountains on both sides of these creeks that you could walk across the creek, you know, in the summer, or step across it, to where now they're 30, 40 foot deep, 100 foot wide, and taking out whole homes. Just the amount of water that came through there in a short amount of time just wrecked places. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice. And I don't know when the true numbers of the death tolls are going to take place, but we're talking thousands of people have died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that living here in the West, we kind of start at 2,500, 2,000's low country, 3,000's not out of line, and then like the highest point east of the Rockies, actually the highest point between the Rockies and the Alps, I think, in Switzerland, is Harney Peak, or it's Black Elk Peak now, and it's 7,000 feet and some change, but it started at 3,000 feet or 3,500 feet, and then went up from there. Whereas, there are mountains that aren't as tall from sea level in North Carolina and in the Appalachians, but they started way lower. So they're actually taller. The actual mountain from where it starts to where it goes up to the top is taller than what we have here, and so I think that's something people don't realize. And then on top of that, it's doing that elevation gain in a lot smaller span of area, and so it just is incredibly rugged country that I don't think everybody from the West really realizes just how gnarly that country is. And then you start funneling that amount of water down those areas, and like you said, the only place you can build is next to the creek. The only place the road can be is just up the mountainside from the creek, and it just becomes a real recipe for a logistical nightmare, really.
Yeah.
And the drones, you just think about somebody who hasn't eaten for 3 days with a baby they're trying to feed, and a drone comes flying over the hill and drops 700 pounds of food and whatever it was, however many trips that was or whatever, that's just like an angel type stuff,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And there's still mule teams up there that are hauling supplies to people. I mean, there's roads that are still not fixed, and there's places that'll never be fixed.
Right.
But it's crazy. Between in the same county, we had drones, Chinese drones flying around the same county. We had mules packing stuff up. I mean, whatever it took to get it done, we got it done.
Yeah. Some of the cooler, the drones are cool too, obviously, but the mule trains, those guys packing trains of mules into the mountains to feed people. That's cool too. It's all cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so do those cart drones, they have just kind of a release on them when the tension is off. It releases the package basically.
Yeah. So what we done is we busted a case of water in the bottom of those trash bags to distribute the weight on the whole bottom. And we'd put like MREs and different food, whatever was needed. And we had 40-pound bags and 80-pound bags, depending on how far we were going. And we would tie that up and then use some rope to tie that off and put a big loop in our rope. And then the winch had a hook on it that whenever it started raising up, it would latch into that rope and we'd take it off. And then once it set down, it released. Yep.
Sure. And was there ways for those people to communicate back to you? I mean, were you getting any kind of sense of this is what we really need?
Well, they had been, most of the places we went, people had already walked in and knew what they need. But we did have other drones, like those mapping drones I was telling you about that had speakers on it that we could communicate with people and say, hey, do you need food or water? And they could give us like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or whatever. But most of the places we delivered, people had already walked to and knew that they needed certain things. Just like that lady, I guess she finally got cell phone service and was called to get help or whatever. So
let's talk just briefly here about lessons learned, like things that you think, oh, this is a great application for these. These are things we learned. If you got tips for people, because I'm sure this is the last time something like this will happen and drones will be used for this in this application. What are some of the things that you learned that would help people, be able to be more successful quicker as far as using drones kind of in a rescue operation?
Well, I think now people realize that we're actually useful and that the drones were useful. They were kind of shrugged us off there to begin with until they actually seen them and knew what we could do with them. So I think that's going to help, and that's cool to be a part of, to be first people in the country, if not world, to use drones in this way. Second is if you've got these drones, go ahead and let your local emergency service know that you got them. That way that whenever a need happens, it could be, I don't know, a car run off the road on a cliff or something, and you need to fly down there and check on somebody. Well, if they don't have it, if they know about it, they may see a use where you could, be used. And just make sure that you communicate with air traffic, there were a lot of people flying drones around that didn't need to be flying drones around. We can, if one of these drones hit a helicopter and somebody ends up passing away, then that's not worth it. So it's just one of those things you got to communicate, and you've just let people know that you've got the resources, you've got the drones that can be helpful.
Well, very good, Preston. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Very good stuff there with Preston. Really appreciate him taking the time to share his thoughts and just some of the incredible opportunities he had to serve and to love his neighbor in the relief efforts there with Hurricane Helene. So looking forward to next episode of the Working Cows podcast. Going to be another week of multiple episodes of the Working Cows podcast. Coming up next, we'll be talking to Lynn Hoover once again, and we're going to talk more about strategy and some of the particulars with how he sees soil amendments from C90 Ocean Minerals playing a role in the success of the operations that he's working with. So look forward to sharing that with you coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.